So Angela and I are entering our 11th year on this property, and before that we grew food for about 8 years on the patio of an apartment slash townhouse, whatever you want to call it, but we had a little private spot there in which we did container gardening. Here on this property we do container gardening, raised beds, in-ground, everything. We've done a little bit of everything. One thing we learned about ourselves is that we are container gardeners most likely. I mean, it's not that we don't find joy in in-ground gardening and planting this garden full of all kinds of vegetables. We will always do some form of in-ground gardening as well. Okay, like pole beans, corn, you know, probably some tomato plants and pepper plants in the ground. We're always going to do something in the ground. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. It's not like we're saying, oh, we don't plant anything in the ground. That's not it. It's just that we started growing food in containers out of necessity. It's all the space we had. A few tomato plants in the ground, but everything else in containers because that's what we had. And here as we enter the second half of our lives, essentially. I mean, we've been together for 22 years now, and if we go to another property, or if we were setting up a property now, we would set it up as more raised beds and containers than in-ground. That's just simply who we are. Part of that idea is that, you know, hey, we're going to be getting older, this, that, you know, you want to set up a property as, you know, for something like later, not for now, but maybe for later. And part of it is just we simply find the value of container gardening, whereas maybe some people who are more traditional are going to say, no, you can't. That's not for country people. That's for city folks. Yada yada yada. Granted, and if that's how you feel, that's okay. You're certainly entitled to your opinion, no matter how wrong you might be. Container gardening is for anybody who loves to grow food, maybe a little short on time, and maybe just likes to be a little different. Just to be honest with you, and that's a little bit of all. That's a little bit of me and Angela and everything. We're a little different. That's okay. We love to grow food. We like to do things differently. That's fine. But like over the course of time, we've done a lot of containers, and there's so much value in it. But at the same time, if you're looking to start container gardening, there's some things you need to understand about it, and some ways that it's different. And there's some pros and cons, and some things that are kind of in between a pro and a con. And so that's what we're going to talk about today: is the pros and cons of container gardening. Now, you see behind me, we have something growing here in a container. It's garlic. It's doing pretty well. The first time we planted garlic actually in a grow bag was last year. Now, we've always planted some in a raised bed that we made out of the corner, and it's always done fine over there. Raised beds are going to be very similar to containers, but not quite the same. Okay, so anything we say about containers, you can pretty much take it to raised beds. There might be some variation, but we're just talking about containers. But in our containers here, just these fabric pots, grow bags that you can find on Amazon. There's all kinds of various brand names of them. They're all pretty similar, and they're all going to operate pretty much the same, under the same principle, that's for sure. But we got these growing in grow bags. We have some peas over here, I'll show you in a minute, and some onions that are growing. And a lot of this is just because, you know, we're going to talk about it like this because we're doing things just a little differently. As I talk to you right now, I'm going to be planting beets here in this grow bag because I love beets. We're planting Detroit dark red beets. If you're going to plant beets, if you want a traditional red beet, this is the one to grow. There's a reason why it's everybody's favorite. It's because it's the best. All right. So as I plant them, I don't really want to talk about how I'm planting them, but I want to talk about why we're planting these in a grow bag as opposed to the raised bed we used to plant them in. First of all, we want to do things a little differently this year. So we're planting in a grow bag. We're wanting to rotate things around some, and that just helps us. But like one of the great things here about putting these beets in a grow bag is that there's more control. There's more control over this environment. I think there's more control over what's affecting it, because if something tunnels in that raised bed, you can't stop that. It's tunneling overnight. This has got a bottom to it, right, and surrounded here, and I can cover this to keep things from getting in it. So that helps a lot, because I will cover it, keep birds from eating the seeds, keep maybe squirrel from digging in it, things like that. So that's a pro, certainly a pro of having your vegetables and your growing stuff in a container. There's also less weeds. Less weeds is a huge benefit to container gardening. Obviously, look, yes, you're gonna say, well, just get out there and don't be lazy and get out there and weed your garden. Okay, sure, you're right, you can, if you stay on top of it. But if things happen, if that's just the way it goes sometimes, because we're all humans, and we all know life happens at times. And if life happens and you get behind on weeding, boy, you're never catching up. Never catching up, right? So container gardening is great for that aspect. There's no weeding involved, right? There's little to none. I mean, like here's some weeds right here because we've had this soil before. So if you have soil over time, it's going to get weed seeds in it. It's just what happens. But see that, how simple that was? I planted a 15-gallon grow bag full of beets just like that, right? And I got one more I'm going to do real fast. So we've talked no weed pressure, easier to control your environment and cover it and whatnot. It's very enjoyable. There's a lot of flexibility. It's very enjoyable because of that. Like you can actually kind of keep things growing a little bit longer, in my opinion, in containers, because you can cover them, move them around, put them under shelter. If it's going to get cold, move them up on your patio. Like here, we can take these and put them up on the edge of the patio, make room for that. You can overwinter things in them. I took some rosemary that we grew last year, took it into the garage, overwintered it in the garage, and this year it's huge. It looks great. I'll show you that in a minute. So there's all kinds of things like that. There's little disease pressure. Like if you're planting tomatoes can get blight or fungal diseases that are in the ground, and they just stay in the ground, and it's hard to get rid of them, honestly. Once you get it, you'll have that every year if you plant in that spot. So you got to rotate it around. But with this, there's really no fungal diseases you're dealing with. There's very little disease pressure when you're a container gardener. So that's a big deal. And I think there's less physical pests as well. Now, while I was knelt down putting beet seeds in those grow bags, I wasn't down on the ground, right? It was elevated a little bit. One thing about container gardening and some form of raised beds as well is that it can be elevated, right? It's one of the greatest benefits of all, is that it can be elevated. Like Angela Kay just planted this resin raised bed container in carrots. And now she's patting down the dirt. But this thing right here is off the ground a few feet, and it's been planted full of carrots. See, and handle it just like a container with the same soil and everything else because it's resin. But it's up at my thigh, so it's a heck of a lot easier to get here. You can do this elevated and not hurt your back or your knees. So there are forms of container gardening, especially, that can really, really, really save your back and your knees. And like these green stalks, I mean, heck, they're all the way up here, right? It's resin container, so it's going to operate just like a resin container would operate as far as the requirements you're going to need, which we'll get into. But look at this. It grows luscious kale, spinach. This kale is beautiful. The spinach down here is beautiful, right? It's awesome. All in this tiered system, and it's in a container right here on our patio, and it's awesome. Grows such good food. And if you're watching this on the day this comes out, so it's Thursday, May 15th, 2025, right? If you're watching it there now, Greenstock is still on their Mother's Day sale, so you can get in on it just through the end of Thursday. Just through the end of Thursday, May 15th. So you can still, Mother's Day still there. You can get the cheapest price you're ever going to see on a Greenstock. Use our link in the description and our code ART10, ART10, get an extra $10 off of that purchase. You won't regret it if you want to get into containers and get a Greenstock at the best price ever. And here's that beautiful rosemary that we up potted out of a resin container into this 15-gallon grow bag fabric pot. And look at all this beautiful fresh growth. It's going to be amazing. I would estimate that it's going to be probably up to here. I mean, so much higher, right, by the end of this year. It is awesome, doing great, and it's wonderful to have around. It's not all fun and games when it comes down to container gardening. There's a lot of great things that we love about it, and we're always going to do it, like I said. But it does cost a little bit for upstart, because the soil, you got to buy your own soil. It's not in the ground. It's not already there. In ground gardening, your soil's already there, right? But these grow bags down here, we had to buy most of this soil. Now we've created some soil, but from composting and whatnot. But most of this we've had to buy at some point. So it does cost a startup, right? The startup is not cheap. And when you're buying that soil for containers, you need to buy a good potting mix, a good light potting mix. Why is that? Because in containers, when the soil heats up, especially resin containers like a green stalk or any other resin planter, especially those, they're going to heat up with the sun, right? In the summertime heat, it's going to heat up, and when that happens, that soil compacts. It just tightens up and compacts, and it's going to be really hard for your roots to grow much more after that, and it's going to be really hard for it to absorb water after that. Okay, so you need a good light potting mix to keep it from compacting and keep it to more able to absorb the water. But it will take more water. That's the next thing as well, is that does take a little more water, because the containers will leach out the water that they don't need. Even a grow bag will, because it's fabric, it'll run out the sides or whatever it needs to, where the ground might hold more moisture inside and store more moisture for you. A container is going to need water a little bit more often. That's just how it is. Green stalk, resin planters, raised beds, grow bags, they're all going to need water just a little bit more often in the heat, especially because they just don't hold on to moisture as well. A little side note, maybe a negative, is what do you do with the soil after the year's up, right? What do you do with all that soil? We pile it up right here in this section of our yard, and we compost in it. We put chicken manure in it from our chickens, and we just allow it to get all the nutrients and the fertilization from the chicken manure, and come next year we'll have more soil to use again. So that's one thing that you can do, as well as you can use it for compost and compost in it. You can put it in, if you want to do some in-ground gardening with it, you can throw it in your in-ground garden and help your soil out there. Maybe refill some raised beds out of your containers, whatever, but there's always a use for it. You just do need to find a good use for that soil after your season's up. But again, another pro is I think it's easier to succession plant and to plant, harvest, pull out, then replant something else and harvest again, and keep your going longer into the year. By doing so, I think it's easier to do so with a container, especially the green stalks, but I think it's easier to do with any container. And finally, a side note is that you do need to understand that the size of the fruit, like if you want to plant tomatoes or peppers in a container, the size of that fruit will be dictated by the size of that container. Okay, if you put them in a container that is too small, you will get small fruits. Plain and simple. You don't care what variety you plant in those containers. If the container is too small, you will get small fruit. That is just how it's going to be, because the roots don't have space to go out and get larger, and the plant just doesn't develop as well. You're going to get smaller fruits. Plant just how it is. Also, because they'll get root bound a little quicker, and once the plant gets root bound, it starts throwing out all the blossoms, and it's only going to set small fruits off of those blossoms. Just the way it is. But it is a great way to garden. Don't discount it. It's very useful, very profitable, very enjoyable. So I would encourage a container garden, but those are certainly some things to think about. Thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate it. My name is Jason. This is Art of Creation Homestead. We love y'all. God bless you and goodbye.